Okie dokie. I am intentionally waiting 10 to 15 seconds here because for some reason the Twitch stream seems to cut off a little bit at the beginning, so blah 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 blah. Just want to make sure I'm up and running here before I jump in. Okay. Yeah, we should be good here. Looks like I'm live and recording. Yeah, so last week I showed 3 out of the 6 tracks of my album that I put out recently and didn't get through the rest of them, so I figured I'd take today and walk through the other 3, play the songs for you, and then also show them in Ableton. And then last time, because I misconfigured it a bit, the VOD, the video on demand, didn't actually save the audio in Twitch, unfortunately. But that's okay, I'll play them all at the end of this session. And hopefully I configured it right this time. So, let's see. Last time, I think the 3 tracks that I showed, the ones that I played, were in kind of random order. Fade Into Bushes, One Zeno, and Sin Prisa, Sin Pausa. The first one was kind of lighthearted and had a cool little funky bass guitar line. The second one was much more kind of progressive house or trancey, kind of a hard-hitting dancing beat. And then Sin Prisa, Sin Pausa was more, I don't know how I would describe it. This is what it sounded like. It had those cool like stretchy synths and pretty melodies and stuff like that, yeah. Cool, so this time I will start with this one, which I called Time is a Construct. So I'm just gonna play it straight through from the beginning, just the raw audio, and then I will open the Ableton project. So without further ado. Okay, yeah. I don't know what genre you would call that, but as you can tell, I was having some fun with some of the melodies, and has kind of a bouncy feel to it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Ableton project now. And yeah, I was looking up when I actually made this track, and I released it in April, so like 8 months ago, more than 8 months ago. And probably made it sometime in April as well. So let's see if I can actually remember all the things I did here. Okay. Alright, we have the project open. Hopefully my CPU can keep up. So in terms of the layers that I have, you can see here I had drums group with kick, 2 different snares, no, 3 different snares, metal, which is probably some kind of hi-hat, a sub, a bass group spelled with 2 Z's, 2 different basses, a synth group with a synth pad and a synth ARP, some vocals, some effects, and some risers. And let's see what each of these actually sounded like. Let's start with the bass group because that sounds interesting. That was... oh, interesting. Yeah, so I guess that little bouncy kind of gritty melody was actually these basses. And so what do I have on the chain for my group? Let's watch it. I have an EQ. I have one of my favorite saturators, the Oxford Inflator, and the soft tube saturation knob. About 5 dB of compression, bass mono, pretty straightforward. Let me see what I was doing here. Show automation. I guess for some reason at this part I was automating the... oh, I was just automating the gain? Okay. Yeah, just doing kind of a weird crescendo there. And then I had an imager. I think I assume this is the Ozone imager, but I wasn't doing anything with it. I was probably just looking at it in a tuner. Nice. Okay, so yeah, I guess for this actual melody, you can see there's a little bit of call and response with the 2 bass layers. One is panned left, one is panned right. So let's look at the first one. So I took this sample and I chopped it up and I pitched various chops, slices, to make that kind of, let me turn on the metronome. And made it kind of syncopated. And I have too many plugins on here. So it looks like for the first bass layer, I actually just used the Oxford Inflator on it and did a bit of compression. Oh, and I put some reverb on it. My reverb is FabFilter Pro R. Oops, let me try that again. What does my reverb look like? Yeah, I don't know why it keeps looking like that when I drag the plugin window in. Drag. Yeah, I don't know why it looks so small. But that's what I'm doing for the reverb. Without the reverb, it sounds like this. With the reverb. Subtle, but it does something. And then the second bass layer. It's always kind of a trip going through these because it's been so long since I actually made it. I'm like, what did I do here? The second bass layer is... it's funny, I think it's the same sample maybe, but like pitched way up. Maybe. Let's see, what does it say? Gnarly filter. It's hard to see, but it's at the very bottom here. Gnarly filtered 126 gnarly filtered bass 2. And this one is bass 1. So it might actually be a different sample, but it sounds pitched up. And I syncopated it, did some fades, similarly did some saturation on here, except with the fun little sausage fattener, this guy. This guy is fun to play with. Okay. Base model. Overdrive. What did that make it sound like? A little bit of distortion, compression, imager. Okay, so for this one, it looks like I widened the highs. It doesn't sound that nice by itself. It's kind of like thin sounding. But when I have it together with the other one, it's like a interesting complement. And this is really what's giving a lot of the track, is kind of the bouncy feel, because it's like doing a little counterplay between the left and the right channel. Yeah, I like this part here. I just like the way it kind of plays with itself. Okay, synth group. So these are the bright, high piano sounding notes. Let's see what I actually did. So the synth pad. That sounds cool. It's a very electric sounding piano, which is in Serum. There's obviously some movement there. I EQ'd it. Used Native Instruments Transient Master to, I guess, make the decay, or like have the sustain be a little shorter. Dimension expander is giving it more stereo width. I had some reverb on this one. Oh, and I just realized that the bass group, when I was talking about the delay, the reverb earlier, I actually meant to say delay. There's delay on this bass. Because my B send is a delay, not the Pro Art reverb I was showing earlier, or vocal delay. So that was what I had on the bass channel track. So for the synth pad, I have reverb, not delay. Nice reverb. Subtle, but it adds something. Soft saturation, or why do I have two transient masters? That's weird. Utility, tremolo. Tremolo is what gives it that movement. Listen to it without tremolo and with. I mean, in general, tremolo basically means volume automation with like a LFO, and so without, it's nice, but it's not wiggling around as much. With, nice movement. And the arpeggio is, let's see what synth I use for that. Sounds very fuzzy, which I like. This is also Serum with the preset Juno Bells. And then I EQ'd it. I don't know why I'm going crazy with these EQs. I think I just really wanted to bring out some of these mids. And a little bit of saturation. Oh, we get a Novel Tech character. Yet another saturator that brings out some character. Hard to describe, but let's see what it sounds like off and on. Off. On. Let's see what the gain difference actually is. So off. -9. On. -10. That's interesting. Yeah, technically speaking, the dBFS of it when it's on is not as high, but to my ears at least, when I turn this on, it sounds fuller. It sounds fuller. You can see I have it panned pretty far to the right as well, just because I wanted the whole synth group to have more width. And also the frequencies are similar, right? The synth pad has a big peak over here, like in this range. And then the synth ARP looks like this. So like if I didn't pan it, it might conflict more. And so when I have it panned, when you're listening to them together, you can still hear both of them pretty clearly. In fact, it kind of sounds like the synth pad is more to the left. But when I listen to the synth pad by itself, yeah, it does sound more to the left. Oh yeah, because I literally threw it to the left with this utility. So yeah, basically the synth pad is long and you know, sustained chords with a little bit of tremolo. The synth ARP is more, you know, plucky notes panned right. Together, they sound like this. Yeah, and I use the glue compressor to kind of make the whole group a little more controlled in terms of volume, in terms of dynamics, and, you know, glue them together. Whatever that means. Okay, vocals. Yep, kind of ghostly, glitchy, creepy. I like that kind of sound. The voice itself is some samples, which, I mean, I chopped up, right? I went in there and pasted and cut and potentially made it a little, I assume it's offbeat, let me see. Yeah, I mean, it's aligned to the grid, but it's not aligned to the beat, per se. And I think I was really trying to push up a lot of these mids. The choral plugin from Native Instruments just gives it a chorus effect, which is nice sometimes on vocals when you have just like a mono sample like I do here. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. But I think that's just because I probably warped the sample and stretched it out. That's why it sounds like that. Not because of the choral plugin. Harmonic boost is like a saturator that brings out certain harmonics of the frequencies. It gives it kind of that ringing sound. If you listen to it without, it's like normal, and then you turn it on, you hear a little bit of like a high harmonic frequency, like ringing sound, like so off, on, off, on. Subtle, but it just gives it like a little more of a tail, like a high-end tail. Fab Filter Saturn is a saturator, and it looks like, what does that say? I don't know why it's all, again, I don't know why the Fab Filter plugins, the resolution's all messed up, but little extra crispy. Actually, this is actually one of my own presets. So without it, with it, hard to find the words to describe what it's doing, but I feel like it's making it stand out a little more. It's like making it ring stronger. And to, let's see if I can pass a blind A/B test here. I'm gonna close my eyes, click it a random number of times, and not pay attention to how many times I'm clicking it. Okay, boppity boopity bop. Okay, now A, B, and my eyes are closed. A, B. I think B is stronger. B is with it on. So yeah, it's actually doing something that is perceptibly different. This is bringing out this is widening the highs. What kind of gain automation did I have on this track? Yeah, it looks like I used it for some crescendos and stuff over here, like this one. That sounds cool. Now, why does it sound so cool? I think the sample is probably warped and stretched out, pitched down, and with all these effects. Some of it's the gain automation. Yeah, and everything else I should. Erosion. When did I use erosion? I used erosion back here. Let's see what the erosion did. Right, so if I turn erosion off, it sounds like, if I turn it back on, it makes it sound like a little dirtier, a little grimier, like more metallic. If I turn it off, turn it back on. It's like it's making it sound rougher. And then over here. Yeah, pretty subtle, but I like the texture it gives. Bass mono below 120, sidechain to kick and snare. Yeah, that is the vocal track. It's you know, in context, it sounds like. It's got a nice, friendly yet shiny metal kind of texture. FX, what were those? Oh, little boops and bops and woos. These samples are pretty short. High passed it. Did a little, what's this? Mid-range? That was an exciter. Bring out the mid-range. Sounds like I was really trying to emphasize the mid-range in this track. I was making it wider. That's interesting. It starts wide and goes narrow. It's probably just the sample. Let me take a look. Because I don't think I automated the stereo width here. I think it's just, that's just how it is. Wide, narrow. And everything else is pretty normal. Risers. Whooshes. Ooh. Cool. It's like pretty dramatic. Goes from, yeah, it's like pretty loud. It's almost speaking just by itself. Not too much to it. I don't even think I transposed it or anything. Yeah, and then this. Kind of cheesy sounding, but it works in context. Everything is sidechain to kick and snare. I usually aim for about 6 or 7 dB of gain reduction, which is what you see there. By the way, I think you can ignore this reference track because I think it ended up sounding nothing like it at all, so probably just delete that. Ooh, the sub. Alright, depending on what kind of speakers you're listening on, you may not even be, I mean, I'm not sure how much of the sub you'll be able to hear, but you can see it right there. There's some good subs going on there. And it's actually following the notes of the chord progression, I assume. That's why I put this tuner in here. It's completely mono. I mean, everything's below 120 anyway. And it's sidechained. It's a sample that I tuned. And again, if you can't hear it, it's just following the notes of the melody, or the chords at least. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. And it's syncopated. Some of them are on the beat, some of them are off the beat. Yeah, actually, I wonder if I just bring this up a few octaves, maybe you'll hear it better. 1, 2, 3. Oop, too many. 2. Nope. Oh yeah, right, the EQ. Raise it, and bring it up a bunch of octaves. 1, 2, 3. Down. Turn off the metronome. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But I'm gonna pitch it back down. Cool. And bring this back to wherever it was. Undo, 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 undo. Is it working? It's not working. Nope. I screwed it all up. Let's see. I'll just paste what I have here. Paste. And then I don't remember where this was, but probably around here Cool, and okay, the drums last but not least, so the metal. Cool, it sounds very stereo. The sample is going left and right. It has stuff going on both sides. If you have headphones on, you'd be able to hear that. Looks like I did some EQ automation for fun. Just bringing out some of the highs and, yeah, bringing out some of the highs. You can kind of hear it as this peak here moves up. And then add 3 different snares. Oh, that's a reverse snare. How do the drums sound again? Yeah. So I had a reverse snare. There was a dog barking in my neighbor's place that seemed to be barking with the beat for a second there. Woof. Woof. Okay, snare. Kind of a sharp sounding snare. Oh my god. That snare is occupying a lot of frequency. Yeah, I'm not sure if I would do that the same way again, if I were to do it again. Transient master to make it more punchy, attack up, sustain down, so it's short, punchy. Did I put reverb or delay on here? Yes, I put a little bit of reverb. What am I using for reverb here? I'm using Fab Filtered Pro R. Okay. So that's snare 2, snare 1, which is coinciding with it, is also taking up a lot of spectrum. Supercharger is a evil snare preset. What does Supercharger do? Probably some kind of distortion or saturator. Well, in this case, it's making it sound almost higher pitched and shorter. Cool. So together, and then with the kick. My kick is a very kind of a soft sounding kick with a little bit of a click. And then with the reverse snare, the whole group together, which I put a glue compressor on my drum group just to make it all kind of stick together. It looks like I keep using the transient master to just make everything sound a little more punchy. But honestly, these drums are pretty straightforward. I don't even think they change much throughout the course of the track. They keep playing through the breakdown. Oop, something a little bit different in the rhythm is happening there, right when it goes back into the third section. But otherwise, it's pretty monotonous all the way through, to be honest. Which, yeah, in some of my more recent tracks, I've been trying to vary that up more and use the drums as more of a tension and release building kind of thing. But for this track, it's pretty much straight through, keeps the same groove. Yeah, so that's the track, and last but not least, you can see my mastering chain. Looks like I felt like I was really missing some of those highs, which I try not to do that on my master too much. I'd rather just like bring it out in the mix, so by the time it gets to the mastering stage, I don't need to do something like that. Mix bus compressor, which we talked about last time, just very light, 0.5 dB of makeup. Looks like this time I used a vintage tape on the, okay, this is some kind of saturator tape emulation kind of thing that Ozone makes. Added articulation. Sounds like I really wanted to bring out some of the, just make the track sound punchy. See what the difference is. Well, as usual with a lot of these things, it's very subtle. Enhance high end with Ozone Exciter. And then for the master, really wanted to make the high end spacious, so I'm, oh wait, this is the imager. I took everything above 10K and made it wider. I mean, I like that. I like the feel of the track being kind of like very playful in your ears, in your left and right ears. All those high, low diddles and sound effects like are a little more fun to hear. And then Ozone Maximizer is here. I would shoot for -3.3 dB on the ceiling. I shoot for like no more than 4 or 5 dB of gain reduction. So this is like hitting 4.4 for something, 4.6. And as always, the gain automation is merely to fade in and out at the beginning and end. Hang on, I'm gonna take a water break. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm gonna go into the next track now. ABDH, which stands for anything but deep house. It is definitely not a deep house track. Yeah, so it's funny, every time I listen to that song now, I'm like, I really wish I mixed the bass, or the kick to be stronger. It feels kind of weak when I listen to it now, but that's okay. And obviously that track had more kind of long build-ups and strange, interesting sound effects that I was experimenting with. But let's take a look. I think I had a lot of fun with that one, just in terms of making some of those noises that kind of play around with throughout the track. And yeah, I don't know what genre I would call that song. You tell me. When did I make that track? Let me look it up. Hang on. Oops. I made that track. Let's see, checking my SoundCloud. I released that track 8 months ago. Mid-April. Okay, so I probably worked on it March, April. So a while ago. Well, what were all those weird noises? Let's start from the bottom up. Risers. The aptly named Wasperizer, which is built into Ableton, but I EQ'd it, did some weird automation here. Oh, I think that's actually, I know what that is. That's using something called the, it's a Max for Live device, envelope follower. There's an envelope follower, probably, definitely actually sitting on another track somewhere, which is making this move in response to some other track that's playing. I was probably just trying to make those particular frequencies stand out on the other track. You'll probably find it later. Utility, just doing some volume automation. And then sidecams for the rest. Okay, yeah, that's pretty, yeah, pretty crazy sounding. Risers, more risers. These are samples, not synthesized like this one was. And they sound pretty dramatic. I did some fades, I did some stereo width, stereo reduction and stereo width. And you can kind of hear the sidechain from the kick, causing it to be like kind of pulsing. Melody, the weird melody. Let's start here. Okay. Interesting sound. It's a Serum preset called Postmodern Talking. Interesting. How did I come up with the notes for this thing? It's kind of got the pitch bend built in, where it glides from note to note. Or each note glides itself, or each note is itself a bend. Let's start here. Yeah, I think it actually remembers the previous note. Because when I play it from there, it doesn't glide, but when I play it from here, it's gliding from the previous note, so it's going to glide up. That's kind of cool. I can also see how that could be annoying. EQ Saturator, which is a cool little saturator plugin that makes things a little fuzzier depending on how you set it up. Yeah, see how it's like both more stereo and fuzzier? I don't know, I like playing with stuff like that. I think I did two different types of choruses and then layered them. Actually, what was the point of doing that? I think maybe I liked these two choruses, but also wanted the blend of them. What I really could have done was pan one of these left and pan one of these right. Oh, that gives it even more of a undo. Gives it even more of a pronounced effect, I feel like. Yeah, kind of like that. Tremolo again. Yeah, it sounds like I just wanted to make this particular track, this particular layer as wacky as possible. Stereo vibrato. I mean, you can tell there's a lot of movement happening in there, even just in that one note. There's like a... I mean, if you look at the imager, it's pretty wide. It's pretty wide, and that's even with these things reducing the image. Reducing the width, it's pretty wide. Okay, here's the envelope follower that I found. So when this is playing the riser ducks, I think that's what's happening. So here, I don't actually use this much anymore. I usually use the track spacer thing for sidechaining, but I wanted this melody to stand out. You can tell it's the focal point, FP, when the riser is playing, so when you hear the melody playing, you can see this thing ducking. It's also just fun to watch. That's the melody. I mean, it's not really, well, it's a melody. It's just weird. Synth. That's a cool sound. I tuned it. I didn't do any, well, I specifically used the tones warp function. Maybe I stretched this out, I'm not sure. What did I automate? Ooh, I automated the transposition, so that's why it glides up. Glides up exactly an octave. Yeah, you can see right there the gliding. Saturated it. Although it's not even, it's barely triggering. I put some delay on it, even more than, let's see. Yeah, I didn't use the sends, I just put a delay plugin on it, this one. Wormhole. Play. That's what's giving it that crazy, without it. Sounds very dry and it disappears immediately, there's nothing left over. Still sounds cool, but with this, it really hangs in the air. Did some gain automation. Did some weird gain automation here. That's what gives it that little offbeat feeling, where it's like... The ba-ba-ba-ba-da is because of the gain automation, and also I'm changing the balance to sweep from center to right. So that plus this little notched gain automation, plus the pitch bending, which I think I have here, causes it to go up an octave, then do the little offbeat, syncopated, the pulsating, I guess, and then the replica causes it to kind of hang in the air. So this is what it sounds like. Ooh, here. Cool. Then synth, what's that? Synth, what's that say? Synth alt something? Synth alt audio. What did I do? Okay, so I've got some weird sample. Is this a sample or did I make it? It looks like a sample. Oh, but it says recorded. I think I resampled this from. I think I generated it using MIDI. Mid pad, high string audio, synth alt audio 1. But I usually, oh, here it is. I did generate that. Synth alt MIDI here, the grayed out track, is how I generated it. I used Spire. And I EQ'd it, and that's what generated this synth alt MIDI track. Is what I used to create this synth alt audio track. I bounced it to audio to save on CPU. That's what I did. I remember now. Let's look at the actual MIDI that I used to generate it. The actual MIDI that I used to generate is just one note. Interesting. It's just one note. It looks like a C, I think. Yeah, this Spire preset probably just takes that one note and does some kind of pattern on it. That's got to be the explanation. I guess I can check it. Can't I turn this track back on? I turn it on. Oh god, that's loud. Yeah, looks like that's what it's doing. It's just that one note. Yep. Okay. Alright. Shush. Oh, that was cool just to remember how I did that. Okay. So yeah, this is just repeating. With some gain automation. And the usual sidechains. Kick and clap. Alright, high string. Ooh. Also just kind of one note, sustained, but with some variation, which is coming from the synth that I used to make it, which if I go down here to high string pad, it is just one note. But I used Absinthe. Absinthe is cool. I think Native Instruments makes it, and it has a lot of cool kind of more cinematic, symphonic kind of sounds. High string MIDI, I put a chorus on there, a fast reader, so that's how I made that sound. It's not doing much, honestly, but it does provide that eerie, ringing sound. Okay, and then let's see what these mid pads are all about. Okay, I panned one left, one right, and I did a different EQ on each of them. The actual group has some saturation and compression. But I'm trying to remember how I made that actual. This is something I made, this loop. Mid pads are yeah, recorded. You can see because it says you might not be able to see, but here it says ABDH product / sample / recorded. So it's a recorded sample that I generated from. Looks like I didn't keep the MIDI, maybe. High stabs, top groove. What's this? Okay, that sounds cool. I think what I did was top groove. Ooh, that is what I did. Alright, so now you know. I used a Reactor effects plugin called Molecular, which takes sounds and transforms them and does all sorts of cool stuff. So I took this loop. You can tell it has the same rhythm. And I put this plagiarism, well, plagiarism. That's ironic. And it looks like I changed some settings because you can tell by the star, but. Isn't that cool? So like it basically adds melody to it. It starts out as a percussion loop which has pitches and notes in it, but then I turn this on and it just sounds awesome. it adds that little kind of bass line. It's basically, I think the way this plugin works is extracting certain harmonics or something, and then figuring out which of them kind of play nicely together, and turning that into more of a melodic or harmonic content. Actually, I have no idea what I'm talking about. Maybe someone else can tell me, but I do know this is what it sounds like. I mean, that's a track right there. But what I did was then I took specific EQs out of it, and then, yeah, I took a very specific EQ range, and I saturated it, and that's how I ended up with why can't I hear it? Oh boy. With something that I can't hear. Oh, wait. Solo. That's weird. There it is. EQ. I must have not actually used. Maybe I just did. But you can see that somehow using the combination of these things, I ended up producing and bouncing to audio and getting this. Right. So that's where this waveform came from. It's basically the EQ'd version of this top groove. Yeah, it wasn't that. Maybe it was just this. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But you know, now that I listen to this, I kind of feel like I should have slowly brought in all the other frequencies so I get, you know, maybe a climax of the track could have been something that sounded more like this. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, I want to play with this plugin more. There's so many different options here, and there's probably just like so many cool sounds you can make, starting just from like simple percussion loops or you know, Foley that you record or anything really. So now you know. Now you know. So that's how I got this. Okay, bass group. Let's see what's worth highlighting in this particular chain. Bass dupe. I'm just doing kind of a stereo with thing there, because bass dupe is panned to the right and bass is not panned. What's the difference between these two? Just the EQ difference. So bass is this. Oops. Bass is just like some low end. Comes from Diva, yet another synth. And then bass dupe is also the same synth, but pitched up many octaves, it sounds like. EQs in a completely different range. And it sounds fuzzier, because I have this saturator on here. So that's panned to the right. The low, subtle one is not panned. And then together, you just get something that sounds a little more layered and wide. That's fun. Yeah, just provides a little ambiance, atmosphere. Sits in the, it sits in two different ranges, I guess. That's another envelope follower, that's why it's jumping around like that. Probably to let the melody come through. So yeah, both the mid pad and the bass group are kind of just providing that foundation underneath. Pretty repetitive, but it's got that cool rhythm. I like the groove. Alright, the metal's got like a similar groove. I'm doing some panning, clap, more panning on the clap. Tube driver is like a tube saturation emulator type of thing. Kick top is just giving the kick a little more, because if you look at the kick by itself, I've kind of low passed it. Yeah, this was the thing that I was saying. I wish I mixed the kick to be a little heavier. I'll just do that right now. It's like got a cool kind of crackle to it. And then the top is just adding higher frequencies. Very sizzly. And then the drum group. Yeah, there's my stronger kick. Sometimes people will like, oh, look at that. I was gonna say, find the fundamental frequency of the kick and raise it by a dB. Which is exactly what I did right here. It's a G sharp. If I raise that even more.
Yep, and on the mastering chain, similar to last time, but this time I used this J37 tape emulator thing. And for the exciter, I wanted to accent a lot of stereo effects. That was the theme of this track. More high-end, more stereo. This track definitely had plenty of stereo, plenty of high-end. And that's the maximizer. I mean, I do like how filled up this part is. Right here. Yeah, and that little break in there. Where this, let's see, which reverb, oh yeah, the wormhole, that's where the wormhole really shines, because without it, there would have been no delay, or it would have sounded more dry. Yeah, see, that sounds so, I don't know, just like weak and boring, like relatively like something's missing, but with it. Yeah, I like letting that ring out. Yeah. I think this mid pad here was one of the more interesting parts, just like in terms of making that little background beat groove. It's got cool rhythms and sounds in it. It's kind of part of the background, but I feel like it adds a lot of vibe, atmosphere. I also like the synth, yeah. I mean, a little gain automate gain. Gain automation down there. Yeah, it's a fun track. Again, I think I could have varied the drums a bit more over the course of the track, but I guess that's the thing. It's much fun with the other tracks. Okay. One more track. One more track to show.
Pent-Up Demand. This one I released, I think like November or something, so more recently. Let me look it up. Yeah, 2 months ago. Oh, October 7th. I released this one October 7th. Let's listen to it straight through, and then I'll open up the project. Where am I? Here. Yeah, that one's pretty long, 5 minutes, almost exactly 5 minutes. Had some fun with the vocals in that one, kind of chopping them up and putting effects on them. And then the bass line itself and the different builds and stuff were pretty fun too. Let me open up the project and show you. Okay, yeah, quite a bit of layers on this track. Let's start with the vocals. The vocals, as you can tell, are some samples that I chopped up into little bits and pieces and did different fades and reversals and effects and stuff. Okay, so I'm going to turn off a lot of stuff on my mastering chain in an attempt to make the CPU utilization less. So it'll be quieter, but at least you can hear what's going on. So for these vocals, I'll just focus on this section here. I did some EQ. I did some... okay, yeah, I used Nectar, one of the presets, to add a whole bunch of stuff, which theoretically makes it sound warmer. I added a chorus plugin. I compressed it. I did reverb on it. Gotta have reverb on those vocals. Sidechained it. Even automated some of the stereo width parameters. So maybe if I just turn off everything, we can hear more of the difference. So, I mean, certainly with the EQ will make a difference, but let's turn off everything but this one. And here's what it sounds like, dry, if you will. I mean, it sounds cool, but it sounds quiet, it sounds narrow, and it sounds thin or weak. Let's turn these all back on, and here's what it sounds like afterward. Looks like I did some gain automation too. I like it. It sounds very angelic. And then this part here, I went kind of crazy with the gain automation, but that was the part right before the drop. Yeah, I chopped these up into little things, did some gain automation just to give it, oh, and I even automated like the reverb and delay, which for the reverb I used the Convolution Reverb Pro from some Dream Chamber, I like the sound of that, and then Vintage Darkness Replica preset, which I think it's like a pretty long delay actually. Yeah, sounds like a pretty long tail, so when you have it together. Yep, and that one chime, that's important, right? What did I put on this chime here? I actually turned off the ping pong delay for that chime, but without that chime, I mean, I like that chime right there in the middle. Okay, let's see if I can. There we go. My CPU is not completely dying, so let's see. So, other layers. Start at the top. I've got this kick, which is kind of weak. Oh, it's not the real kick. This is the real kick. There we go. You even have some reverb on the kick, sausage fattener, saturation. The snare. There's an interesting delay on that snare. Yep, I put reverb and delay on the snare. I think this is just to add a little top to the kick. And then the hats. There's a lot of layers of hats, as you can see when I get later in the track. The hats kind of come in more and more. So the hats include this shaker thing, which is kind of just 1K and above, but I've automated some things like erosion. And then this other shaker thing, I mean, hats, shakers, they're all like metal sounds. This is also 1K and above. And then this hat is, what is it? Yeah, just a little bit of boop boop. The wood block. So the whole hats group. Because I'm changing different shaker samples here, it's like interesting enough. Not too monotonous. Every now and then the wood block comes in, the shaker changes. The stereo width is like decent. Let's actually check it with a plugin. The hats, what do they call this? The hats block group. Yeah, see? And then stomp. That adds a little more to the kick, I guess. It's a very EQ'd stomp. And it's kind of like extra snare. So when I put drums and the shakers and the hats and the wood block all together, my entire percussion group sounds like this. And then these sub bass notes are really acting more like risers, and like I probably reversed it. Just adds to the build a little bit. So, I pitched it to be the note that it ends on. And then these bass notes are actually just like repeated kind of plucky sounds, whatever that note is. So I think the sample already has a little bit of that articulation on it, but I use the transient master again with a long sustain, novel type character again, saturator, medium curve. Yeah, without these, it probably sounds a little weaker. Oh yeah, look at that. It decays really fast, whereas this is more elongated. Okay, this is probably my favorite part, the respace. I started the sample, but I actually transposed it within the sample, so that's why it sounds pitch bendy. It's going down one, it's going down one, it's going up three, then notching down. I also intentionally use a large grain size on the warp method, so that's what gives it the kind of fuzzy sound. Yeah, I even changed it on some of these. 66. So it gives it a lot more movement. It's almost like there's a melody being played by the bass. These are all side chains. Yeah, so that's the bass. That's the respace. You put it with these plucky things and you get almost a melody on its own. And then the growl bass is kind of this noise. It's like growling. like a animal or something, and this is almost like a riser in and of itself. You can see I've automated some of the parameters here. Intensity is yet another saturator type of plugin. Yeah, I put a lot of saturation on this one, and compression, and I panned it. So it's not actually that loud by itself. Yeah, it's not actually that loud. But it adds this texture, like these little growls, so when you play it with the other bass stuff, it's like, not quite a call and response, but it's like they're having a conversation. Yeah, and you can tell I pitched it to match the key, so clip transposition, like this part here is pitch bending up. Follows the notes. And I do think these are probably fighting in the frequencies a little bit. But that's okay. Let me see what kind of panning I did, if anything. Maybe I could have tried to separate them in the stereo width a bit more. It does sound like this growl bass occupies the sides a little more. Maybe. Yep, but those together are kind of providing the bass layer of the track. So I showed these vocals already. Yeah, you can tell I've stretched them out. But then there's yet another vocal layer. More like creepy ghost voices. That might be stretched out, or it might have just sounded like that. And then this other vocal layer. That's cool. I feel like that goes well with this. You can tell I sliced and diced it. So this thing. I pitched it, but I guess the little syncopation was already in there. Cool. So the vocals together kind of, I tried to make them fit together. Everything's in this key of whatever minor key it's in. I like the sound of that one. Ba-da-da. Looks like I didn't transpose that one at all. Oh, I mean, I did. I see this moving. How is this moving? What's going on there? It must have at some point. Though I don't see it here. I don't see any of the blue lines here, but if you look at the transpose knob, it's definitely moving. Oh, wait. Oh, it's because this. I think. This one is tuned. Goes with the vocals. Yeah. I really spent quite a bit of time kind of chopping these up exactly to fit. Like, I like how this sounds. And then this ambient pad here. Yeah, so the movement is coming from this EQ that I'm moving around. It looks like I automated something else here too. flare. I probably just turned it on or off. Flare is a flanger plugin from Native Instruments. And I might have done, yep, did clip transposition as well. So it's one pitch and then it goes down. In addition to the EQ thing moving around. Oh, crispy hats. This is a distortion plugin, I think. And gain automation. Yeah. And then another pad. Ooh, that sounds nice, like an organ. So it says pad audio, so I must have bounced it from a synth. So let's see. This stuff is very straightforward. Pad 2 audio, pad 2 audio. Okay, look, pad 2 MIDI. So it came from, the pad 2 audio came from Absinthe. Came from Absinthe with some EQ, saturation, stereo, vibrato. That's how I made this sound. Yeah, Absinthe is nice for like long evolving sounds. Like if you hold down a note, it will evolve on its own. Because it looks like I didn't automate too much on this one. Just want to see what I automated. Saturator. Okay, I automated it on and off, I guess. Oh, and the amount of dry wet mix. Like here. Okay, yeah, so you can hear, you can watch it actually. You can see the saturation moving as I go through this part of the clip. So that's what's giving it the swirly sounds. I mean, a lot of the swirl's coming just from the way that Absinthe generated it. So if I turn off the saturator, you already get a lot of that kind of stereo swirl. But, wait, hang on, I wanted to turn off saturator. Turn it off, here we go. But I added extra texture by automating the dry wet mix of this plugin. And you can tell if I crank up, like let's just crank up the dry wet to 100%. Sounds very fuzzy. I kind of like that. But I made it not as fuzzy, but still a little fuzzy. Like you can hear it right there, the fuzziness. Versus, or, cool, I like it, it's like staticky. I mean, this, I could just listen to this by itself, honestly, it sounds cool. So in context. Yep, gives it that nice atmosphere. Did I talk about Plux? Not yet. Plux, where did that come from? It's just playing like a two-note kind of chord thing. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so those samples are just transposed, and maybe I did something with the grain size, but nothing too crazy. But then on the actual effects chain, EQ, stereo width, more flanger, this saturator thing, compressor, another saturator, another saturator. I have a problem. I don't even think this knob is doing anything. Actually, it is. It definitely is. Never mind. And I think I just tried to make this one as plucky as possible. I'm just turning up the attack. And I think at some point I got cute with the left-right channel and maybe made, let's see, show automation. What did I do? Oh yeah, see. Toward the end, I think I made it bounce around left and right, so probably wouldn't notice unless you listen to it now, but the balance is jumping left, right, so like it's moving left, right, left. And then here, it's bouncing left, right. Yeah, it's bouncing from the left to the right. And this is just some sort of crescendo. I like those sounds. Okay, so those are the plucks. High synth. Did I talk about that? High synth. Yep. Sounds a little fuzzy because of these two plugins. Otherwise it would sound lame. Okay, but this is how it sounds with free fuzz and the fat trader. So I'll just show the plugin window. Yes, I really liked the kind of fuzzy sound that had versus that. I mean, even if I turned it up, I just don't like how that sounds compared to what this sounds like. A little bit of compression, EQ, bass mono below 200. So I think with the plugs, especially over here, they're doing like a, I mean, they're not exactly coinciding, but they're, again, having a little conversation. Here we go. Where was I? Here? No, I got lost. Here, I was here. What's in the middle here? Huh. Oh. Whoops. This entire part is, never mind. That was not part of the track. That was just like scratch space or stuff I was using to copy paste. That was not actually part of the real track. But I think this section is similar. Yeah, now that I listen to it, I might make that high synth a little louder. Okay, and then chimes, pretty straightforward. I think they're just following the chords. But I liked using this ping pong delay. So each note is not like just one note by itself, it's actually more ringing in the left and right ears. And this little riser. Did I do anything crazy with this riser? No. And then that's it. Glitter balls. I can barely hear that. Here. Oh wait, because I soloed the wrong track. This is what it sounds like. Here we go. So what did I do? I automated some of the EQ. Just to give it the little, like, almost like a whistling sound. I just like giving it a little movement. I also made it move left and right. So all together. Okay, it's worth zooming in on that part there, the what's causing that wub. Yeah, I remember I actually spent quite a bit of time on that last section. So the drums, percussion for the end is actually very straightforward. It's not doing anything. And then one more hit. And then this sub bass is more of a riser. Let's listen to all the basses together. It's like... Alright, yeah, let's listen to it one at a time. So the sub. Nothing crazy, it's just ending on that note. These bass notes. Ah, so that's where it came from. So it's playing like 1/2 step below the final note, but what makes it sound like that? It's not in the clip automated modulation. How did I make it sound like that? I mean, I like how it sounds. How did I do it? Is that just a reversed clip? Is that how it sounds like that? Oh, I think it's because haha, yeah, see, the warp method really makes a big difference. Here's what it sounds like with beats with a transient setting at 100. If I change that, if I change from beats to something else, it sounds totally different. Oh, that could have been cool. No. Yeah. That would have been interesting. But I decided to go with beats, which made it sound like this. And complex, not as interesting. Nothing. Ooh. That texture. Grain size. Small grain size. Nope. Medium grain size. Big grain size. Flub, 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 flub. High flux. Low flux. What would it have sounded like this? That's pretty cool too. And then with tones. Tones with a high grain size. Something sounds like off key there. But yeah, I had it on beats. This is how I had it. I just like how it's like a little more spaced out. Now it still sounds off key. Alright, yeah, no, I think that's how it sounds, yeah. Yeah, playing with these is fun. It sounds cool. I just like how it's more flubby. And this. Yeah, so this is like a super stretched out sample. That's why it looks like that, I think. And for this one, I decided to use tones with a 65.08 grain size. That's how it sounds like that. Yeah, all these sound different. And then for growl bass, it's not doing too much there. It's more of a, it's just providing some texture at that point. That's barely a note. But I like the staticky, crackly sound it gives. Ambient pad. Nice little fade to black there. Same with this pad. It sounds like rubbing a wind chime or something. So all together one last time. Yep. And what did I have on my mastering chain? I had a passive EQ also from Native Instruments. Wanted to make it sound a little brighter. The old glue compressor. This time I used the Puig Child mastering glue, exciter, maximizer. Pretty typical settings for both of these Ozone plugins. And here's the maximizer. Yep. Okay. Fade to negative infinity at the end. Yeah. So did I talk through every layer here? Yep. The sparkles, the risers, the chimes, the hyacinth, the flux, the pad. 2 pads. One was a sample and one came from Absinthe. The different vocal layers playing off each other, the 3 different basses that were playing off each other. Sub bass only showed up a few times, and then all the different hats and drums and stuff. Cool. Okay. That was it. To end my stream today, I'm actually just gonna play the album straight through, beginning to end. I'll just play the audio. And I'll play it in the order of the album itself. And I'll just let you listen to it straight through. So I'm not gonna talk, I'm gonna mute my microphone, and after that I'll call it a day. But thank you for watching and listening. Here we go.